This is the next chapter for Oi Caveboy. I'm going to read you chapter 6. Where did we finish up to at the end of chapter 5? Well, we had Borg laughing with his son about his evil plan, which seems to be working out quite well, in that Iggy and Hubba have gone off to the far lands to try and find some stinkweed to cure the chief, but Borg reckons that the chief will die, Iggy will never come back, and Borg will then become the chief. Chapter 6. Talking in Grunts. Iggy trudged uphill through a swirling grey fog. He felt they'd been walking forever, at least since the day before yesterday. They'd waded through rivers, hurried through dark forests, and toiled across moors where the wind was colder than a snowman's toes. Now they seemed to be entering a dismal land of marsh and bog. Bubbles flipped and flopped in pools of mud. Hot steam spat into the air with the sound of a giant belching. Iggy shivered and waited for Hubba to catch up. "Anything left to eat?" he asked. Hubba reached into his furs and brought out a purple-stained hand. "2 billyberries," he said. "They're a bit squished, but I've been keeping them warm." "Thanks. You can have them," said Iggy. He peered into a damp mist. He was beginning to wonder if they would ever reach the far lands. Soon it would be evening and too dark to find their way. "We should rest," he said. "You go and look for firewood." Hubba looked around. "In them woods? Woods aren't usually the best place." "Yes." Hubba still hung back. "Only, what if I meet a wolf? Or a grizzler?" "Here," said Iggy, "take my catapult. And a whistle. It'll scare 'em off." "Oh, thanks." Hubba set off for the trees, whistling the kind of tune that sends bears and wolves running for cover. Iggy, meanwhile, gathered some sticks and moss into a small pile and tried to get a spark to the fire. The flints reminded him of home, and he wished he was back in his own damp-smelling cave, listening to Mum grumbling over the supper. Footsteps approached. "Something's coming," he panted. Iggy narrowed his eyes, peering into the mist. At first he thought Hubba had imagined it, but then he glimpsed a grey shape. Whatever it was moving fast and coming their way. It walked on 2 legs, which meant it was neither human or a bear showing off. "Iggy," said Hubba nervously, "I think we should go back." Stay calm, said Iggy. "I am calm. You're hurting my arm." "He's probably friendly. Just act like you mean no harm." Hubba raised a hand and waved. That might have looked more friendly if he hadn't been holding a stick. The stranger had reached the clearing. Like them, he was dressed in furs, but no one would have mistaken him for an Urk. Everything about him, from his flat nose to his hairy feet, seemed too big. He walked in a hunched-over, slouching way, almost as if he had no neck. Iggy's skin prickled with sweat. "No neck," he thought, and his dad's words suddenly came right back to him. "If you meet a no-neck, run." Right now, this sounded like pretty good advice, except the no-neck was closing on them fast and carrying a spear. Running away would only make them look frightened, which obviously they weren't. A few paces away the stranger halted and stared at them in silence. He noticed the string of dirty yellow bones hanging at his chest. He had bone bracelets and anklets that rattled like teeth when he moved. The point of his spear was stained with mud, or at least it might have been mud. "Hello," said Iggy, feeling someone ought to break the silence. Mm. The no-neck made a sound in his throat like a dog growling. It was hard to tell if this meant welcome or prepare to die. We are Urks, said Iggy, speaking as if the no-neck was hard of hearing. Urks, from the tribe of Urk? Urks, said the no-neck. Hubba was whispering in Iggy's ear. I don't think he speaks Urkish. The no-neck's eyes shifted from Iggy to Hubba and back. He stabbed the ground with his spear and suddenly gabbled a stream of words. Clug, he grunted. Barbara clug. Nene hoo come a clug. Iggy and Hubba looked at each other wide-eyed. Clug, repeated the no-neck, jabbing a finger at them impatiently. Maybe he wants to know who we are, said Iggy. He pointed to himself. Me, Iggy. He, Hubba. Hubba, Iggy. Piggy, said no-neck. No, Iggy. Piggy. Iggy decided this wasn't getting them far. Who are you? He asked, pointing a finger at the no-neck. Yes, who are you? Who? You who? Said the no-neck. No, what is your name? Me, Iggy. What is your name? Crack. Hubba wiped his eye. It was his name, or was he spitting? Crack, repeated the no-neck. Crack, crack. He repeated it several times, apparently liking the sound of it. Finally, he turned and pointed his spear the way he'd come. Clug, he barked, and strode off into the grey mist. Iggy and looked at Hubba. Maybe he wants us to follow him. Said Hubba. It can't do any harm. Not unless he's planning to eat us. Iggy glanced at the darkening sky. It was growing colder. I think we have to trust him, he said. Maybe he knows where we can find some food. That settled it. They set off across the marsh, running to catch up with their guide. Crack had a fire burning. Even better, he had 2 silver fish speared on sticks cooking over the flames. After days of living on nothing but roots, nuts and berries, the smell was heavenly. Iggy bit into the soft white flesh and was soon chatting about their journey and the valley they'd left behind. He knew Crack didn't understand a word, but their host nodded occasionally and made grunting noises. No-necks weren't half as bad as his dad had made out, decided Iggy. Maybe Dad had never met one like Crack, who would share his last fish with you. Iggy talked about Hammerhead's sickness and explained they were searching for a plant that could cure him for his fever. It's called the purple stankwort, he said. Do you know it? Crack spat a fishbone in the fire. Stankwort, repeated Iggy. Purple stankwort. Crack pointed a finger at Hubba. Stinkwit! No, said Iggy. It's a plant, a flower. You know, like buttercups and daisies, added Hubba. Daisies, said Crack. He offered them the head of the last fish. This is hopeless, we're wasting our time, said Hubba. Iggy had an idea. If words were failing them, it might be easier to show their friend what they meant. He plucked a weed he found growing among the rocks. Flower, he said, showing it to Crack. Flower! Crack took it and put it in his mouth. Bloomin', he said, chewing. Yes, bloomin'. We look for bloomin'. The bloomin' called stankwort, Iggy held his nose and pulled a face. "Sorry," said Hubba. "Must have been the nuts." A light of understanding dawned on Crack's face. "Reek bloomin'!" he exclaimed. "Yes, Reek bloomin'!" said Iggy excitedly. Where is Reek bloomin'?" "Club!" Crack thumped to his feet, grabbed his spear, and waded off into the fog. "Come on," said Iggy. "I think he knows." Chapter 7. Scent of the Stankwort.